Well, with the Dodgers running low on some of those big-time arms, L.A. turned to a familiar face when it comes to this postseason. Walker Buehler got the call for the final 3 outs and delivered. And just like Ferris, let's just say he will be in a parade pretty soon with the Dodgers. Buehler turned things around this postseason, throwing 13 consecutive shutout innings to end the month, and he's now allowed just 1 run and 7 hits in 19 innings when it comes to a fall classic. That ERA .47, pretty good. Take a look at this, though. A little personal history for him. He becomes a 3rd pitcher in a World Series history to become or win a game as a starter and save the clincher. The last time we saw that, 2020 with Julio Urias there, and then Madison Bumgarner 6 years before that in 2014. After the game, he did say, obviously for me personally, it was huge. 2 years, 2 surgeries, it was a lot. For more on Game 5, I want to bring in, when it comes to the World Series, co-host of Intentional Talk, MLB Network, Ryan Dempster. And, of course, easiest thing for me to say, I feel like it's going to be a busy day for you, right?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot going on, and we got our kind of season wrap show today, this afternoon, just talking about all the stuff that went on last night and over the course of the days in New York. So a lot of fun, though. I mean, this is what we kind of played for as players, and now we get to talk about as analysts. So it's a blast.
Something we'll be watching, of course, when it comes to everything here, moving and shaking. I just laid out there what Buehler has done just postseason and then what he did last night. He even told Dave Roberts he would be there if you need me. Put into words what you saw from him this postseason and, of course, those final 3 outs.
Yeah, I think, you know, most importantly for Walker Buehler, like what a kind of a stamp on what's been a tough couple of years for him. You know, I've been down that road. I've had Tommy John. I've had to come back from it. He's had the second time. You know, and to miss all this time in an organization where, you know, you were such a big part as a starter, he battled through that, and then he got locked in at the right time of year in October as a starter. And isn't it something? The Dodgers, who, you know, are this big juggernaut, who used relievers, you know, like a masterpiece, Dave did, the way he painted a picture with the bullpen and pointed to the right guy. He caps it all off with a starter to end the game. I just thought that was so fitting of kind of how the Dodgers went about it with their pitch usage. But he was fabulous. He was so good, you know, and it just did a tremendous job. And you know, to be out there in that final out, I think it meant a little bit extra for him, you know, and to have that moment, I was pretty proud of him and really happy for Dave and the Dodgers.
Yeah, if it wasn't for Walker, we could easily be talking about maybe a Game 6 because the way it looked like at 5-0 at that point when it came to the Yankees. But Garrett Cole maybe making one of those mental mistakes there in the 5th. What did you see from their ace in that moment?
Yeah, that's a tough one, and that's a tough one to throw. I know the New York papers are going to throw that on him, but this is one of those ones where you see it as this slow roller and Anthony's charging, but the biggest thing right there is those are the tough ones for infielders, so he's got to make sure he catches that ball, and it's kind of, you know, got a spin on it. It could go right, it could go left, but at the end of the day, you have to get over to first base, and you have to cover that. And that inning right there kind of summed up the series a little bit. LA played crisp. They played clean baseball. They didn't make errors. For the most part, you know, they did what they needed to do when the game called for it, whether that was getting a guy over, getting a guy in. We saw that later in the game with a couple sac flies to get the lead. So when you give any team in the big leagues an extra out or 2 extra outs, you're going to have a tough time. When you give the Los Angeles Dodgers 3 extra outs in a World Series game, there is a really good shot that they are going to go out there and score a bunch of runs, and they did that. And you got to credit them after that. Freddie Freeman doing what he does, and then Oscar coming up with a big double to tie the game, scoring Freddie from first. So you can't give extra outs, and now you have to sleep on that one for the rest of the offseason. That's a tough one.
Yeah, Garrett Cole will have a lot to think about, but we can say the same thing for his buddy old pal Aaron Judge, the captain there, who went 4 for 18 in 5 games against the Dodgers. I can't think of the last time we saw that in the regular season, and most fans, I'm pretty sure they can't say that either. But take us in the mind of the captain and what's going through his mind this offseason of maybe the shortcomings we saw in the World Series.
Yeah, I think, you know, sometimes in the postseason, you're facing the best pitching. Guys are usually throwing really well. Otherwise, the manager's not going to have them in there. And they located really well. They had a lot of guys with some really good breaking balls, some good sliders that matched up well for Aaron's swing. And then he kind of started to figure it out. Game 4, he was a little bit better. And then Game 5 with the home run. And, you know, he seemed better at the plate. And so, but it was too little too late. And, you know, to put the onus on one guy, I think is unrealistic. You know, not everybody can go out there and have a Freddie Freeman-esque World Series, or I witnessed it firsthand with Big Papi in 2013 when he won the World Series and MVP, and I was on that team, and he hit 600. But not everybody does that, even the best of the best. So, there's a lot of learning, and for Aaron, a chance to be in his first World Series and understand what that's like from an emotional standpoint. But this guy is as good as they get as far as how he handles himself, how he's prepared, what he needs to do. And I'm sure next time, he'll be better than he was this time, and just a little too short this time.
Speaking of next time, I'm pretty sure a lot of fans, look, they want to see Dodgers and Yankees again. I feel like there was a little bit of meat left on the bone. And when you look at the odds there heading into next season, those are the two top favorites. Chance we see that here in 2025? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think they're slim, just in the sense of if you look at the history of the World Series, back-to-back champions is very hard to do. We haven't seen that, since the Yankees back in the late 90s, early 2000, 99, 2000. So it's just so hard to repeat. There's so much that goes into it. These guys, think about all the guys that have been done playing for a month, and they get a whole extra month's rest, and these guys are still going. And then on top of it, for both teams to get there, I think is such a tough thing. Can they do it? For sure. I'm not doubting either of these teams because I watched them firsthand from the field level. These guys are monsters, and the Yankees, they're not gonna sit on their hands. They're gonna go out there and try and re-sign Juan Soto, and they're gonna try and add. They're gonna try and add where they need to add. So, and the Dodgers are always gonna be players, no matter who's out there. So, can it happen? For sure. If there's two teams that got there, and I say, oh man, could they get back? It's these two teams because they are loaded and they have the finances, and they have the capabilities to do it. I just think it's such a tough thing to get back to the World Series, especially in today's game.
Teammates are always key, and one of your old teammates is now our teammate here, Will Middlebrooks. I'm curious, you got a story for us about you guys back in the day?
Will was great, man, and he had some big moments for us, obviously, throughout the World Series, and a lot of fun. And he was one of the younger guys with a veteran group around. All the way from hitting 3 homers off of R.A. Dickey up in the Sky Dome or Rogers Center now. It was just, watching him have those moments on the field. And I do have one fun story, and I'll share it. He knows the story. So we're on the bus, and we're on a bus ride from the airport in Colorado to the hotel. And it's a long bus ride there because the airport's far away from downtown. And John Lester is sitting there and in his seat, and he's kind of chirping from the back, and Will's having some fun. We put the young guys on the mic, and and he's talking some smack, and John Lester said, "What'd you say?" And I said, "Don't back down from him, man. You don't back down from that veteran guy. You tell him." And he said something else, and John Lester came charging up for the front of the back of the bus. And I swear John was going to do something. I don't think he was, but I swear he was. He maybe had a little bit of liquid courage on the plane ride out there. And we had to get up and go, no. I told him to say that. We're just having some fun, And he was like, oh, okay. And he's like, damn, man, don't ever do that to me again. He had one of those looks in his eyes. But no, Will, was a huge part of our success in 2013. And we had a great run together. And I know he's crushing it now with you guys, so couldn't be happy for him.
That's awesome. We got a guy that also maybe has a better story between you two. Here he is right here. You want to tell your story, sir?
I'm in here in tears, like crying, laughing at the Lester story, though, because I was like, I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm released. I'm done forever.
Will, good to see you, man. What a run that was. And last night was the 11th year anniversary. That was on the date, and for us to go through that together, all of us, we're bonded for life as World Series champs in that city, and those guys in LA are getting to experience that too. And oh, you're showing this one. Okay, I see that. This is why John Lester got up in the back of the bus. Brandon, that's why he ran from the back of the bus right there. But that's okay. That's okay. If they were using instant replay right there, that wouldn't have got over. I love it.
So, Brandon, this was August of 2012, and it was like one of my few pinch hits. Like I had a pinch hit, and Demp was shoving that day. Demp, I think he went 6 and 2/3. He beat John Lester that day, and just watching his slider was really good that day. And I went up there and I sat slider because I was like, he's gonna think I'm this young dumb kid going up there to try to hit fastball over aggressive, and he hung me a slider, and I happened to. He didn't know at that time. He didn't know slider was right into my bat speed.
Hey, Brandon, he was young, but turns out he wasn't that dumb because he was sitting all over that pitch.
Wait, Ryan, what do you remember about that? What do you remember about that moment? Just seeing it travel.
Yeah, I do remember that game, and I remember dominating that day because I had a really rough first outing, and then we went there. I'm like, okay, this is me. And I remember coming to the dugout, and I got kind of like, I did think that. I was like, here's a young kid. I'll just flip a slider in there and get a strike, and then he was all over it. And I'm like, you never take it for advantage, never take it for granted. If it's a young kid or old kid, convict to a pitch. And I didn't, and I cost myself a home run there. So hats off to Will. And then he hit a whole bunch for us when I was there in 2013.
You had a 4-0 lead. You were safe.
That's right.
But I know you guys just told the story about the bus rides. We had a lot of fun bus rides, especially when I was the only guy that hadn't been to arbitration yet, so I got picked on a lot. But Demps, he's a native Canadian, so every time we would go to Toronto, and it would be a late flight, and the liquid courage would be flying around. Demp would go to the front of the bus and give us a tour. He'd be a tour guide for us, going through Toronto, going through downtown, naming all the buildings. That was always one of my favorite parts. But Demp was such an important part to that team, mentally, emotionally, obviously on the mound. He made 29 or 30 starts that year as well. But like for me, and I'm not gonna get too sappy on you, but for me, he was one of my favorite teammates because I was a young kid. He was the vet. He played 16 years in baseball. I was with him his last year. But he was one of the guys that really took me under his wing and showed me the ins and the outs. He showed me not only on the field, but off the field. This guy's a great husband, a great dad. And it's stuff that I've carried along with me up until this point in my life, far beyond baseball. And just the things that I learned from him, I'll take with me forever.
Oh, I appreciate that, man. I really appreciate that. At the end of the day, when you're done playing baseball, I say this all the time, they just keep playing games. They don't, no matter who you are. You could be Derek Jeter to David Ortiz. It doesn't matter. They start playing the next day. And so your legacy on the field, very few guys get that. It's those relationships that we make in those locker rooms, on those bus rides, in the game itself, within the people that are in the business, and that'll lead you to a kind of a great post career and just really a great appreciation for what we got to do for so long. So I appreciate those kind words, man. That means a lot.
That's awesome.
Sure.
Awesome.
I know I'll see you on the road doing IT at some point next year.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Ryan or Will, thank you for playing along. Appreciate it. And Will, appreciate the story. And Ryan, you too, is playing along there with Game 5 as we see a new champion in the Dodgers. 4-1 when it comes to 2025, and the Yankees at plus 750. Maybe we'll get a rematch. We don't know. But look, money talks. And when it comes to those two organizations, it always walks.